I have never felt so frightened in my life. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think straight. My heart felt like it was going to burst out of my chest. I had just been told that I was going to be shot at dawn. At least that's what it felt like. My heart was racing. I was shaking uncontrollably as I paced around the house, and I couldn't imagine how I would come out of this alive. The cause of that reaction? I had made a mistake on an invoice. That's it. I'd made a mistake on an invoice and I felt like I was going to die. Why? Two reasons. One, I had subconscious references for being in trouble and disappointing people. And two, the brain and body can't tell the difference between fear in our minds and real, immediate physical danger. So even though I was walking around the house saying to myself out loud, this is ridiculous, why am I so scared? And even though I knew that all I needed to do was correct the error and resend the invoice, I still continued to feel like I was going to die any minute. Have you ever felt that way? Well, whether you're worried about the coronavirus and the effects that the situation is having on so many areas of life, the uncertainty and the disruption, fear of the future or fear of getting ill or dying, or you have a fear of what other people think of you, or a fear of not being good enough, fear of charging what you're worth, or any other fear related to beliefs. Or maybe you have a phobia or some other illogical fear. But even if you know that your fear is warranted, that there's good reason for the fear, over the next 15 minutes, I'm going to share with you exactly what fear is, regardless of the subject of your fear, what really causes it, and of course, most importantly, how to clear the fear. So we'll start with what fear really is and how it works in your brain and body, and then why two people can experience the same circumstances, but only one feels fear. And then I'll give you a little technique for clearing fear in under 2 minutes. So what is fear really? You may have heard it said that fear keeps you safe. But the truth is, fear doesn't keep you safe. Fear keeps you stressed. You don't need to be frightened of traffic to not walk out in front of it. And you certainly don't need to be sitting at home thinking about how frightened you are of traffic in order to not walk out in front of a moving vehicle. So being frightened of something won't make it go away or change. For example, if you're frightened of the coronavirus, so getting ill or other people getting ill, or you're frightened of the knock-on effects of the situation, so losing your job or your business, or things being cancelled, or financial loss, feeling fear is not going to make those things change. But being able to think strategically, being able to be creative, and being able to notice new opportunities and come up with solutions, that will empower you to make changes regardless of those circumstances that are beyond your control. So by the end of these few minutes, you will know how to make the switch in your brain from fear to strategy, creativity, and empowerment. As you probably know, fear is a key part of our survival mechanism. So fear is a physiological state created by stress chemicals like adrenaline and cortisol. And those chemicals cause changes in the brain and body that allow us to respond to immediate danger by running away, fighting, or pretending to be dead. And this is crucial, of course, when we're faced with immediate physical danger. However, unless your life is in immediate danger and you need to act instantly to run away or fight or pretend to be dead, there is no benefit from fear. In fact, fear can do more damage than good in all circumstances where you're not in immediate physical danger. Now, the problem is that your brain and body don't know that. Have you ever watched a scary movie? Your brain and body can't tell the difference between the movie and a real threat. So your heart rate increases and you go into the same fight, freeze, flight emergency state you would if the threat in the movie was actually real. In fact, The only thing stopping you from running screaming into the street is that your conscious mind knows it's just a movie. But since it's your subconscious that is controlling your brain and body on automatic, for example, you don't need to consciously regulate your heartbeat or run your organs. So since it's your subconscious that is controlling your brain and body, and your subconscious can't tell the difference between reality and imagination, even though you consciously know there is no real danger and it's just a movie, your subconscious is still putting your brain and body into that emergency fight, freeze, flight state anyway. You'll also notice that you don't need to be in physical danger or watching a scary movie to feel fear. You just need to think of something you're worried about for your brain and body to start producing those stress chemicals. And the reason this is so important is that one of the effects of stress chemicals in your system is the draining of blood from the prefrontal cortex of your brain, where you do your cognitive thinking, to the back of your brain for survival mode. Because when you're being chased by a bear, there's no time to think things through and strategize or negotiate. You need to act immediately and instinctively. And that's what the back of your brain is for. So this means that whenever you're feeling fear or worry, or in fact any other negative emotion, the part of your brain that makes decisions, solves problems, assesses risk, and forms your judgment is literally offline. You're effectively trying to drive with the handbrake on. So in order to make wiser decisions and notice opportunities that will give you options you hadn't thought of before, and to access your creative problem-solving skills, you need to bring that part of your brain back online. And bringing that part of your brain back online, releasing the handbrake, means reducing the levels of stress chemicals in your system and increasing the levels of feel-good chemicals like endorphins, serotonin, and oxytocin to allow blood flow back to that part of your brain. So feeling good is about more than just feeling good. It's about bringing your cognitive thinking back online. Now, thoughts are connections between neurons in the neocortex of your brain, and those connections trigger your limbic system to produce matching chemicals. So, to put it simply, negative thoughts trigger stress chemicals, which cause blood to drain from your prefrontal cortex, and positive thoughts trigger feel-good chemicals, which allow blood to return to your prefrontal cortex, allowing you to think clearly again. So you can see how the vicious cycle perpetuates. We start to feel fear, and then the natural human response is to look for reasons for the fear. And thinking of those reasons then triggers more of those chemicals that are causing the feelings of fear, which cause us to look for more reasons for it. And so we start to think about more details and read articles and watch videos and discuss it with friends. And in every moment, that is causing increasing levels of stress chemicals to be pumped into our system, perpetuating that constant fight, freeze, flight state and keeping the cognitive thinking of part of the brain offline, so we can't think straight. Toilet paper, anyone? Or we can't problem solve effectively or access our judgment. So now we know that the top priority in achieving our goals and dreams is to feel good, so that we can keep the cognitive thinking part of the brain online. The problem is, it's not always easy to just feel good, especially when you're already feeling fear. And the reason it's easier to feel bad than to feel good, and the reason it can be so difficult to stop feeling frightened, even when you know there's no real danger, is that stress chemicals are stronger than feel-good chemicals because they're part of our survival system. They're designed to get and keep our attention on the danger. So because it's more important for us to focus on the wild animal that's threatening us than on the pretty flowers. So the key to being able to keep your cognitive thinking online is catching any negative emotions early. The earlier you change your focus, the easier it is because the levels of stress chemicals won't be as high. So the longer you allow yourself to stay in a negative emotional state, the higher the concentration of stress chemicals in your system, and the more difficult it is then to change that chemical balance. So now I'm going to give you a quick, effective way to change your chemical state that takes under 2 minutes. And the great news is it only takes 60 to 90 seconds to change your chemical state and therefore your emotional state, as long as you're keeping your focus on the positive and off the negative for that just minute and a half. So for this exercise, you'll need a subject. So someone or something you love. So it can be a person or a pet or an animal that's not your pet, but you think they're cute. And it needs to be someone or something that you don't have any negative emotions attached to. So no worry or missing or longing or guilt or regret or anything like that. Just love and appreciation. And if you can't think of a person or an animal, then you can use a place or an activity you love, or an object like shoes. So take a deep breath, close your eyes, and start by thinking of your favorite color. And if you don't have a favorite color, then just pick a color you like. And imagine being surrounded by that beautiful color. Feel the feeling of that color. And now think of your subject and imagine holding that person, animal, place, or activity in your arms in a hug. And notice the feeling as you imagine hugging your subject. Notice the physical feeling in your chest or solar plexus. And imagine that feeling as a ball of light or energy. And imagine it spreading down to your toes, up to the top of your head, and out to your fingertips. So you're now full of that light, that energy. And now imagine that light or energy overflowing from you, spilling out and filling the whole room. And you can open your eyes. And you just changed your brain and body chemistry and brought your prefrontal cortex online. Now, don't worry if the feeling wasn't very strong, or even if you couldn't feel it at all. This is a skill. And like all skills, as you practice it, you'll get better and better at it, and it will become easier, faster, and stronger. So practice that little exercise as much as you can to keep developing the ability and skill, and to condition your brain and body to lower stress chemicals and produce more feel-good chemicals. And then, of course, whenever you notice you're starting to feel any negative emotion, immediately do that little exercise to switch from stress chemicals to feel-good chemicals and keep your cognitive thinking online. So what actually causes fear in the first place? Why do some people feel fear of something and others don't? We're only born with 2 fears. Our default setting has only 2 fears built in: the fear of loud noises and the fear of public speaking. No, I'm kidding. The fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. All other fear is programmed through experience, either by experiencing it directly or by learning it from someone else. So this means that fear isn't always rational, and it certainly isn't consistent. So what causes fear of not being good enough and fear of disappointment, fear of uncertainty? You'll have noticed that some people have responded to the coronavirus situation with fear, while others aren't feeling fear. Some are feeling frustrated and angry, some are feeling optimistic and seeing the bright side, and others aren't paying much attention at all. So what makes the difference? What makes the difference is the subconscious references that provide the evidence for what to fear, the evidence for how to react to anything. So subconscious references created from childhood experiences provide the evidence that proves our beliefs. Now, that evidence may not be true, but like a computer, the subconscious can't use logic or reason the way the conscious mind does. It can't tell the difference between reality and imagination, and it can't judge something as unrealistic. Have you ever felt frightened by an unrealistic, scary movie? Dinosaurs, anyone? So the subconscious just runs according to its programming. So to change the results, you need to change the programming, which means changing the evidence that proves the programming. Based on the latest in neuroscience, we now are able to change the evidence that proves limiting beliefs to the opposite, positive, and empowering. So to finish off, that "I'm going to die" reaction to an error being pointed out in my invoice traced back to being in trouble at school for not doing homework. And those were the days of corporal punishment in South African schools. So after changing those subconscious references using the Remmert method that we now use with our clients, I was able to calmly and efficiently simply correct the invoice, resend it to the client, and get paid. And I no longer feel fear when invoicing or when making mistakes, or a fear of people being angry with me. It's about replacing fear with strategy and problem solving, which can completely transform all areas of your life as you keep your cognitive thinking online more of the time. Thank you, Jim.